You're training hard, you're eating well, but you're not seeing the change you expect. I see this all the time. You're not lazy, you are putting in the work, so what is actually going wrong? In this video, I am going to break down the biggest reasons why your progress is stalling, and more importantly, what you can actually do to fix it. So let's get into it. This is going to be a little bit of a mini series, so I am creating 5 different videos covering different topics, basically deep diving into some of the key things that you can look at and things that I've struggled with myself in the past as well that you can actually fix to ensure you are getting the best results you possibly can from the time and the effort that you're putting into your nutrition, your training and your journey in general. So today's is going to be a little bit of an overview in terms of 5 of the key points that you can really focus on if you're not getting the results that you would expect and you feel like you're kind of ticking over, not really seeing things move, but you're putting in the effort. Today's going to be covering 5 of the key topics, and then the following videos are going to break down in a lot more detail how to stop second guessing your training, the key to building muscle as a female, the roadmap to your dream physique, and finally, what to eat to build muscle and also to get lean. So the first tip in today's video is going to be covering your training and if you're actually training in a productive way. So with me personally, I came from a very cardio, fitness-based, like circuit training background. So very high intensity training, a lot of effort into the training, but then not really seeing that kind of change in my physique, not really seeing the results that I wanted. So a question that I want you to ask yourself when it comes to your training is, are you actually applying progressive overload to your training? Or are you just going through the motions with your training and exercising to burn calories, essentially? So when I say progressive overload, I mean going into the gym with a structured program, building on your reps, building on your weight, actually tracking your sessions and giving your body that reason to adapt and overcome that stimulus and actually build the muscle. So some of the common mistakes that I often see when it comes to training specifically are not tracking your training in terms of not actually logging the weights and the reps that you're doing. So when you're going into the gym, you've got a clear idea of, right, this is what I did last time and this is what I need to do this time in order to move forward and in order to progress my set. Second thing is just sticking to exactly the same reps. So going into the gym and putting your weight on the machine or the bar and just stopping when you get to 10 reps. So you might be doing 3 sets of 10, stopping when you get into 10, having a little rest and then going on to your next set. So not actually training to failure, but actually being governed by hitting X amount of reps and then just calling it quits on your set, rather than actually pushing to failure. So your training intensity is going to be really, really key. And that leads us into the third point, which is you need to be training to failure and training hard. And again, this is something I used to do, kind of going through the motions of my training, following a little bit of a circuit style, getting my heart rate up, but not actually pushing properly and following a structured progressive plan with the weight training side of things. That's what is going to build your physique and actually give you that tone defined strong look that you are after. That is where I went wrong for years. So that's the first thing to consider, actually looking at those points with your training. The second point we are going to cover is the nutrition. Similar to the training, eating healthy versus actually eating for results. Okay, so going back to the training point, you know, you're going in the gym, you're training, you're exercising, but you're not actually training for good quality results. And it's the same with the nutrition. You know, you can be eating healthy, eating all the right sorts of things, but not actually eating to drive your results forward. So what I mean by that is just because you eat healthy, clean, whatever the term is that you want to use, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually eating for your goals. And when I say eating for your goals, I mean eating the right amount of calories and the right macro split to move you forward into the position you want to be. What you need to eat to hit your goals from a macro and calorie perspective for fat loss is going to be different from what you need to eat from a calorie and macro perspective for building muscle. So what we want to do is clearly define the goal that you want to reach and then make sure that the nutrition targets are aligned with moving you forward towards that goal. Whereas if you are just eating healthily, which is fantastic from a health perspective, there's not going to be any clear movement in either direction with building muscle or losing fat because there's no specific targets with the calories and the macros. So that is the first key point with the nutrition, is actually making sure you are eating in alignment with the goal and not just eating healthily. Just following on from that as well, you really want to make sure that you are eating enough protein. So this is going to be key for your recovery, to make sure you're actually building the muscle that you want, not just the protein, but actually making sure you're eating the right amount of calories to either lose body fat or to build muscle. Because if your calorie intake is all over the place and, you know, some days you're in a deficit, some days you're in a surplus, and there's no clear consistency, what's going to happen is you're going to end up sat at maintenance, not building muscle and not really losing body fat, which is where a lot of women go wrong, because they're sat in this middle ground with no clear movement in any direction. And if you tie that into the previous point we made with the training, you go into the gym, you're training, you're kind of eating, but there's no clear movement in any direction, you'll find you're putting in a lot of effort with your training, you're putting in a lot of effort with your nutrition, but you're not clearly moving towards either fat loss or towards building muscle, so your physique stays exactly the same. So that moves us on to point number 3, which is going to be expecting results too soon. So with fat loss and with building muscle, it does take time, right, to move forward in these directions. And again, you can see how this all links together. If you are not doing the first 2 points correctly with the training and with the nutrition, you're going to find that you stay in the same place for a very, very long time. But once you've actually got the right targets with the nutrition and you've got the right program to follow with your training and you are actually training properly, what you then need to do is stick with that plan and actually commit to that plan and be patient. So that means going through a good, solid, structured phase where you are committing to either a phase of building muscle or a phase of losing body fat. And with this, you know, we want it to be consistent progress towards that particular phase. So not a few days in a surplus, a few days in a deficit, going all over the place. We want to set out a really clear time frame for the goal that you are trying to achieve. And we want to really commit to that goal and make sure that there's enough weeks to actually see enough progress, right? So for example, a female in a building phase, you're probably looking realistically a good 4 to 6 months to actually get some good solid progress of eating consistently in a calorie surplus, training hard, recovering well, to make some good progress in building muscle, and that's as a minimum. With fat loss, you're probably looking a good kind of 6 to 8 weeks of solid consistency before you actually start to see progress with fat loss. And we've got to remember as well, when we're looking at these 2 things, building muscle and fat loss, that the progress is going to be measured very, very differently, okay? So with fat loss, you would expect the scale weight to come down, but we want to make sure that we're not hyperfixating on the scale weight, and we're also looking at things like tracking your progress photos, tracking your body composition as well, so looking at kind of waist measurements, your metrics, how your clothes are fitting, a lot of other things that you can track in a fat loss phase. Whereas when we actually look at a building phase, you're not necessarily going to see those results like you would in a fat loss phase. You want your progress tracking to be, are you getting stronger in the gym? Are you managing to progress your sessions? Is your energy good in your gym? Are you recovering well? Because we know that if we are seeing those numbers come up in the gym and we are seeing progress in the gym, we know there's muscle being built, even though it might not be visible throughout that building phase, okay? So point number 3 is we want to make sure, A, we're actually giving it enough time once we've got those first 2, the nutrition and the training locked in, and B, we are actually tracking our progress in the correct way. Because say, for example, you're in a building phase and you're looking at your photos and you're 2 months in and you're like, oh, I can't really see any difference, I just look a little bit bigger. But you've got way stronger in the gym, you know there's going to be progress in building muscle, even though that isn't being shown. So you want to make sure you're not getting too fixated on the wrong ways of tracking your progress, because throughout a building phase, for example, you're not really going to see a huge amount of difference, especially over a short time frame. So you have to make sure you are tracking the right things so you don't get thrown off track. So we've covered the training in terms of training smart and not just training and doing whatever you fancy. We've covered the nutrition in terms of eating for results versus eating healthily. Covered the time frames and the ways of actually tracking your progress. The 4th point is going to be the recovery aspect, and this is often the missing link. So training without enough rest days, without adequate sleep, is only going to stall progress. And again, this is something that I used to massively overlook when I was early on in my journey. I was training loads of cardio every single day, no rest days, trying to just do as much as possible. All that was doing was driving my hunger super high, and meaning that I wasn't actually resting enough. So when we actually look at making progress with building muscle, for example, right, the rest days are where you actually build the new muscle tissue. So it's so important if you are wanting to develop your physique that you're actually giving the muscle time to repair and recover properly before you go into your next session. So that's the key thing with your recovery process with building muscle. And even in fat loss, if you are overtraining and you are putting a lot of excess stress on the body, especially from a cardio perspective, that is not massively going to help with the fat loss side of things. And Obviously in kind of extreme diets, you do have to push a little bit more, but you also have to make sure if you are pushing your body to that level, then you've got to be focusing on getting enough sleep as well, because as females, if we're not getting enough sleep, what that does is it massively drives up the hormones that control your appetite. And that's essentially the reason why a lot of women struggle with cravings, with low energy, because they're not getting enough sleep. And females especially are quite sensitive to stress. So you really want to make sure as a female, you're training hard, you're eating for your goals, but you're also getting enough sleep. That is one of the best things you can do to really help yourself make better progress. So the fix is actually to prioritize your sleep like you do your training, okay? So 3 key points with this: making sure you get in between 7 to 9 hours sleep consistently every single night, having proper rest days where they're actually planned into your week, so you can make sure that you're having days off your weight training, and also managing your stress. So I'm talking here things like maybe introducing journaling, introducing some form of meditation, making sure you've got ways of actually helping yourself relax and unwind, especially before bed as well. So the 5th and final point of this video, the final fix, the power of consistency and structure. So random workouts and intuitive eating are only going to get you so far. And whilst intuitive eating can be a really good long-term approach, and eating healthily can be a really, really good long-term approach, when you are trying to get specific results with building muscle, with losing body fat, changing your body composition, and also when you're in the earlier stages of actually gaining enough knowledge as well, it's really, really important that you have a structure. So making sure you have a structured plan, making sure you are clear with a structured nutrition plan approach as well, and actually going through really clear phases in your journey, because if you want to improve your body composition, you need to have specific fat loss phases, specific building phases, and it needs to be really clearly phased out with very specific structured approaches towards all of these in each phase. And that's what's going to move you from someone that goes to the gym and eats healthily and trains to someone that actually gets really, really good physique results and progress. So having a really clear structured plan, and then also making sure you actually stick to the plan long term and you're not just chopping and changing. And this is something that I used to do as well, is, you know, going into the gym, looking what someone's doing, kind of following their approach and then jump into a new plan, kind of like shiny object syndrome, right? You're always chopping and changing, looking for the next best thing. And the key thing, if you really want good physique results, and I'm talking coming from someone that used to do a lot of cardio, a lot of chopping and changing, you know, eating well but not really following a plan. My physique stayed the same for a very, very long time. And once I moved into a more phased approach, obviously coming from a kind of bodybuilding background now, it's very, very phased. That's when my results really went from someone that went to the gym to actually building the physique that I wanted and seeing really, really clear progress. And once you've got that structure, you just need to stick with that plan. Stop looking for the next best thing and commit yourself fully to that plan that you're following. And then from there, once you've got that structure, it's just about monitoring your results and adjusting things as needed. And that is obviously what we do specifically within our one-to-one coaching, is create that game plan, create that structure, map out all these different phases, and then make sure that we're actually seeing the progress we would expect within each specific phase. And that is what is going to move you through the different stages: losing body fat, reverse dieting, building the muscle, going through that process of actually developing and transforming your physique, and also having the knowledge that actually goes with that as well. I will catch you over in video number 2 of this series, which is going to deep dive into your training and stop you second guessing what you are doing in the gym. So if you found this helpful, please do like, give me a subscribe, and I will catch you in number 2.